Welcome to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. I'm Pete Mezzetti. My topic this evening is the Cove Center for Grieving Children, and with me to discuss this evening's topic is Ryan.
Hi.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
Good.
Welcome.
How you doing? Thank you very much.
How are you?
I'm well. Happy to be here.
Hey, thanks for coming down.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
So, Ryan, tell us a little bit about yourself and what exactly you do for the Cove.
Sure. Yeah. So my name's Ryan Shook. I'm a licensed clinical social worker.
Okay.
And I am a site director at the Cove. Right now, I am directing the virtual programs. We have a virtual program with 3 different groups, and I'm the facilitator of those groups as well as the director.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now tell us a little bit about the program and how it works.
Sure. Yeah. So the virtual program is 3 separate groups. One for fathers and male caregivers of grieving children.
Okay.
One for teens, and one for young adults. And so we meet twice a month, and we do a whole range of different types of activities in our groups. From kind of fun activities, some games, stuff like that with the teens to kind of get them comfortable with each other. Mm-hmm. We might do some arts and crafts. We do grief activities where we honor the person that died, we remember them, share stories about them. And then I also provide psychoeducation on grief. That might be through videos or readings. And one fun thing about the teen program in particular is we've created a couple segments that we do each group called Shout It Out, where kids are encouraged to bring some sort of art or poetry that reminds them of grief or their loved one that they can share with everyone. And we also do a segment called Triggered, just for people to share if they were triggered over the week by something grief-related or teen-related. And so that's the virtual programs.
Okay.
And we also have family programs, which are
about those.
Yeah, so those are in person.
Okay.
And we have let's see. Sorry. We have. So those are in person. We have 5 in-person locations.
Okay.
Guilford, Meriden, West Hartford, Stonington, and New Haven.
Okay.
And those family programs are a safe place for families to gather to come together and get to know other people who have a loved one in their life that has died.
Right.
So the common thread there is that they've all had someone in their life that's died, even if everyone's grief experience is very unique. And the space creates a spot for people to play. The kids like to play games when they first get there, get to know each other, and they have a candle lighting ceremony that they do each group. And then that leads into just various grief activities that they'll participate in. And there's a parent group as well that kind of splits off. So there's some staff there, volunteers, and a director working with the children, and then some working with the adults as well.
Now, how long is the group?
It's usually about 2.5 hours,
Okay.
3 hours. So they have dinner sometimes at the end. They do different types of activities around the holidays, things like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you're also a social worker.
I am.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, so let's see. I got my Bachelor's of Human Services in 2008,
Okay.
and then I spent quite some time working a lot of different clinical programs in schools, in the community, in homes, and in offices, kind of all over the map, getting experience with different populations of people, learning from different clinicians and mentors, and then eventually went back to get my license to practice clinical social work. So I also work full-time as a therapist at a therapeutic boarding school with teens and families as well.
Do you like it?
I do, yeah. I really, really like the work I do, yeah.
And how long have you been with the Cove?
About 4 to 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah. I actually started with the Cove doing volunteering for Camp Aaron, which is now Camp Compassion.
Okay.
So that's another part of the Cove.
Well, tell us about it.
Yeah, we do a lot of things. So Camp Compassion, what was once Camp Aaron, is a free grief camp that's the first weekend of June.
Okay.
And kids 5 to 18 can go to this grief camp with their families. And it's kind of just a big family program event, but over the course of a whole weekend. And it's much more in depth with grief activities, fun and games, kind of regular camp activities too,
Right.
Swimming, ice cream social, stuff like that. So kind of targets all these different areas of, children's development, social skills, and then grief-related work as well. Yeah.
And now, one of the topics we didn't talk about during my opening, can you maybe tell us a little bit about the Cove and exactly what you guys do?
Sure, yeah. So let's see, the Cove, the history of the Cove was in 1989 when Mary Emswiller died suddenly of a heart failure at the age of 39. And her husband, Jim, began a long struggle to find help for himself and his 3 young children. So frustrated by the lack of resources then to support grieving families, he decided to form what was known as New England Center for Loss and Transition.
Okay.
And their twofold mission was to train human service professionals on dying and grief, but also to provide support services to adult grievers as well.
All right.
And so the Cove Center for Grieving Children, a volunteer-driven program developed by the New England Center for Loss and Transition, was started in Guilford, Connecticut in 1995 by Jim and his second wife, Mary Ann, and therapist Renee McIntyre.
Okay.
Fun story, Renee McIntyre is also an acquaintance of mine, and she was the one who got me connected to working for Camp Aaron, or Camp Compassion. So after an exhaustive study of the best national models that there were available, the youth-focused program was designed to help children and teens deal with their grief. And the Cove was separately incorporated as a 501 organization in 1998.
Nice.
And beginning with about 6 families in the first year, the program developed a solid working model that has steadily grown to this day. So now there are 7 Cove sites, as I mentioned, and they're serving hundreds of grieving children and family members through regular support sessions. The Cove also offers an outreach program that touches an additional 1,200 individuals in the state of Connecticut each year through community education, professional training, and consultations and referrals.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's really neat because it's a flexible program that has these pillars of support that have been going on for a while. But what's neat is it's kind of always evolving.
Right.
We're starting to look at how to support individuals who have been touched by death in their life through by COVID. So we're looking into that and starting a program around that as well. So it just kind of keeps evolving.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, how did you guys handle the start of the pandemic to where we are now?
Yeah, well, we kind of handled it like everyone, I think, with some stress and some worry, but we came out with flying colors. I mean, I'd like to think so. So we all kind of seamlessly transitioned to virtual family programs for the beginning of it. And actually, that's where the virtual programming kind of came out from. So I kind of jumped on that idea and presented it as, hey, if this is now what kind of a lot of people are doing virtual things, then maybe there's space to keep this virtual program going.
Absolutely.
And so when everybody was able to shift back to in-person, I kept working for the virtual program part.
And the virtual program is going pretty well?
It is, yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Nice.
It's great. We're in the 3rd year so far, of offering that.
And obviously it's a year-round program. And
Yeah, well, actually, so that's a great point. So we actually work with the Cove as like a cycle through, kind of mimics the school year. So it's September to June, and then with June there's the camp. But yeah, so it's about 10 months, and that's the cycle that we operate on, is the 10-month cycle.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I actually, when you mentioned Renee McIntyre, I actually met Renee and Bruce a bunch of years ago.
Wonderful people.
When I was actually, a friend of mine was a physical therapist in Madison, and he volunteered at the race.
Oh, great. That's fantastic.
As the physical therapist on site. So
that's amazing.
Him and I hung out all day, and I met Renee and Bruce, and they're just wonderful, wonderful people.
So true. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Big hearts.
Oh,
yep.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk about so we talked about the Camp Compassion, and let's talk about professional development.
Sure. Yeah. So I think professional development at the Cove is something that all myself and the other directors are really fond of, and we actually use one another frequently. I'll start there, as supports for each other, to check in with one another and see how our sites are going, to share resources. You know, one site director might have an activity that someone else hasn't heard of, or stumble upon a new one. So we will often share those activities with each other, kind of train each other in those different activities. And we also tend to participate in different kinds of trainings, for grief-related trainings that Allison at the Cove or other Cove directors will send out to us, just to kind of keep us, up to date with all the different kind of evolving work and research that there is out there around grief. And
absolutely. Yeah. Now let's talk about some of the family programs that you guys offer.
Yeah. So those family programs, like I said, have those family programs in the 5 different locations start in September and meet twice a month.
Okay.
And the family programs are set up to really first and foremost engage with families. I think that's, so I used to be a director at the West Hartford site. So I do have experience in the family program in person as well. So I know when I worked for that West Hartford site, my whole goal was to create emotional safety first and foremost. And so if that meant that we were doing a little bit more play in the beginning, a little more icebreakers, the idea was, how do we make everyone feel as comfortable as they can? And while also knowing this is a program or a group that I wouldn't want anyone to have to be at. And yet there are so many people that need it. So creating that safety, I think, is key. And once that was created, we have different types of routines that we use, like the candle lighting ceremony and different grief activities. Different holiday grief activities too, as the holidays come along. So we have a memory meal, for instance, around Thanksgiving, where each family will bring their loved one's favorite dish. And so it's like a little potluck. And the families really enjoy that activity. There's a lot of bonding that goes on there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now let's talk a little bit about as far as the Cove, of how a little bit more detail of how you started getting involved.
Sure, yeah. So I actually, to kind of back the train way up.
Go for it.
I think I mentioned I've been working in the field for quite some time. And so when I was working in a different program that was treating children in their homes, it was in-home therapy. I worked with a family who had their child also attending the Cove. And so that was my first time hearing about the Cove. And the way this child would light up when he would tell me about the Cove was something I would never forget. It was something that immediately grabbed me. Like, what is this place that could make this child who isn't always so joyful, let's put it that way, just really be excited. Like, I'm going to the Cove, it's coming up this week. So I started doing research then about the Cove and learned more about what it was, and tried to do as many referrals as I could when grief-related issues were coming up. And then knowing Renee McIntyre, she reached out to me, and basically coming from a place of needing volunteers, but specifically needing male volunteers for Camp Erin, now Camp Compassion.
Yeah.
So I do throw that out there too, if if your
People wanna
listeners,
volunteer.
yeah, and especially if there are males, but any volunteers at all, please come and volunteer. And male volunteers are often very much needed. So as a male and as someone who knows Renee reached out to me and got me connected with that camp, and I loved every minute of it. And I did it 3 years in a row. And then after being connected to that, I was offered a position in directing the West Hartford site, and then that moved on to virtual programming.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Couldn't be happier to be a part of it.
Ryan, would you mind sticking around for another segment?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we'll be right back.
Thanks.
As you scroll through your social media feed, you often see items for sale from a small business. Sometimes the business even claims to support a charity to try to get you to order, or they offer a free trial. BBB Scam Tracker regularly receives reports of people paying for items that they never received, getting charged monthly for a free trial they never signed up for, or receiving an item that is counterfeit or much different from the one advertised. Online purchase scams were the most common con in 2021. Do your homework and research the company before ordering. Check out the business profile on bbb.org, where you can read the reviews and complaints. For more holiday tips from Better Business Bureau, go to bbb.org/holiday.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. I'm Pete Mezzetti, sitting here with Ryan from the Cove. Ryan, welcome back.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
for
my
having
friends.
me.
Thanks for sticking around.
Yeah, you got it.
All right, so we're going to open up this segment talking maybe a little bit about, in more detail, about the program that you run.
Sure.
The virtual program.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, so it's, at the beginning of it, it's really me doing a lot of outreach to connect with schools, to connect with hospice, hospitals, different places to just get the program out there. And what happens next is I get referrals from people who've filled out applications, fill out some information about themselves and their story, and I reach out to the family to talk with them, connect with them, engage with them.
Yeah.
It's kind of back to that feeling of emotional safety that I like to create.
Mm-hmm.
And once I get an understanding of their motivation to be involved, then I send them some information in the email about what the group looks like, and then send them a link to the program. So what I thought would be important was to create some sort of cohesiveness with the family programs.
Okay.
Because some families who participate in virtual programming will also then go and participate in the family programming. So I do the same opening candle ceremony in the virtual program that the in-person family programs do. And I also play our song at the Cove, which is a Bill Withers song, Lean on Me,
Yeah.
which we end each family program with. So that's kind of the Cove song. So I thought it was important to do that as well, to create that cohesiveness. So that's what we play at the end, and just a positive message.
Oh,
of,
absolutely.
Unity, and it's a great song. And
Absolutely.
rest in peace, Bill Withers as well.
Absolutely.
So I think one of, because it's around the holidays, I think one example of something I did with the teens is we use this hot cocoa metaphor, and this cup. It was kind of like an illustration of a cup with hot cocoa.
Okay.
And the idea was that, the things that you wanted to keep important were in your cup. So
Right.
was that high school graduation? Was that friends? Was that family? Was that certain hobbies? So the kids shared all these different things, and I typed it into the cup, like the holding space for that.
Oh,
and
cool.
then, we talked about what are triggers, and then that fit into a part of the illustration. What are coping skills? Then that fit into a part. So at the end of it, we had this nice looking, illustration of a cup of cocoa, and
Right.
this kind of feeling of coziness that we kind of shared stories about holiday stuff. And the kids got to leave with this nice illustration, and hopefully be able to use it if they got stuck over the week, or just lost sight of their goal, or became overwhelmed with grief or something. They'd have these coping skills at their fingertips to kind of look at and remind themselves of. And what's powerful is that it's a collection of numerous different teens who are on the call. So
Right.
so already the sense of you're not alone
Right.
is created, and I think that that's maybe one of the biggest components of any Cove program is the moment you walk into that room, you know you're not alone.
Right.
Everyone else in that room is going through something similar.
Right.
And I think that provides a lot of comfort.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, as far as Camp Compassion goes, if you want to volunteer, what are some of the jobs or things, tasks you can do?
Sure. So really anything and everything. We have people setting up, we have people taking stuff down, we have lots of different activities that people will sign up for. So dream catcher making, some people will sign up for the rock walk, which is another activity. We have people signed up to different dorms when it was overnight, and or cabins, I mean.
Right.
And so you're really kind of like a chaperone and a facilitator at the same time. So you're supervising, and then you're also working in grief work and bringing kids from fun activities to maybe some more evocative activities. We have a sprinkling of clinicians mixed in, who are all assigned a certain cabin or group of kids. So there's always a clinician available and working with those kids. And then we have the volunteers who are that mentor type role, checking in, supervising, keeping kids on task, making sure kids are having fun. And I think my favorite thing is the dance and the ice cream social. To watch these kids who, typically have a hardship related to just sometimes maybe not feeling like they fit in, or just sadness, or just grief in general, and however that comes up. To watch these kids kind of like forget for a second, that's what really sticks out to me at the camp.
Absolutely.
This joyous fun that they have, and how healing that is, and just how beautiful it is.
Absolutely. Now, is Camp Compassion day camp, or is it sleepover camp?
It's kind of changes because of COVID. So it was, I believe it was an overnight this past time, and then the one before that was a day camp. So I think it's gonna be overnight.
Are they rotating?
I think so. I think it kind of matches where the current state of COVID is at.
Gotcha.
So it kind of fluctuates, but it is on now, and so it will be back in June.
Nice.
Of 2023.
And more importantly, where is it?
That's a great question. So
a question I forgot to ask.
It was at a certain camp for a while, and I think they moved it. Just this new one. So I'm not sure where it will be.
All right.
This next year, but
check the website.
Yes, check the website. When in doubt, check the website.
When in doubt.
That's right.
Speaking of websites, if people want more information on the Cove, where are they going?
They are going to coveconnecticut.org.
Okay. And what types of information can people find on covect.org?
They can find all of it there. They can find the applications to the family programs. They can find pictures of activities that were done. They can find some grief-related information. There's a lot of stuff on there.
Can they find information on your program?
They can.
Can they?
Yep. Every program on there has a summary underneath it that talks about what it is.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now, as far as your program goes, how easy is it to register for your program?
Very, very easy. Yep.
And obviously, you got to go online and register for it. You can't just.
Yep. So going online, it's I've kind of done it myself too, just to make sure it's all streamlined. Yeah.
There you go.
Just clicking on that application, filling it out, sending it in, and within 1 to 2 days, you're going to get a call back from either Allison or Brooke or one of the site directors themselves to check in. Or an email. So it's kind of a contact through an email or a phone call. Both.
Or both.
Yep, and that's when we kind of get to know the person who filled out the form, and then kind of find out more about what's going on, and make sure everyone's the right fit for whatever program they're looking to be a part of.
And obviously you guys are a year-round organization and very busy throughout the year.
Yep, yeah, for those 10 months, and then there's still tons of stuff going on during the summer, lots of prep for the next cycle, and so So there's kind of always something happening.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And you guys are always looking for volunteers to support the Cove,
We
correct?
always are.
Yeah.
Yes. So volunteer if you can. It's a really rewarding experience for sure.
And let's talk about, we got a little bit more time left. Let's talk
Yeah.
about some difference between younger children's teens and how to support them.
Sure, yeah. Well, so I think one of the things that I want to start with is that the Cove has a few forms that we continuously use
Okay.
when someone joins. So challenges for grieving children, a few of the ones that the Cove identifies or works with are just to reestablish a sense of safety and mastery in the child's life, to help children and families understand death and what it actually is, to help facilitate the grieving process,
Right.
to help form new connections with the deceased, and to re-enter the normal developmental process. So children typically show their grief in everyday life,
Right.
which is sometimes hard to spot. So it can come out in big feelings, it can come out in frustration. Sometimes it's more obvious and is mentioned maybe with the loved one that died, maybe their name is mentioned. Their grief reflects their current level of development.
Okay.
So we have variations between young kids and older kids. You're going to see things a little differently. In my experience, a lot of younger children tend to speak a little more freely at times, not all of them, and teenagers are a little more closed off at first. And again, not all of them, but children also tend to grieve in intense episodes that are kind of big for a moment and then might shrink down. And kids also re-grieve when life changes significantly for them. So if there's a life transition that kind of shakes their core up again, it can have like a similar feeling to the grief itself, or the grief can kind of come up through those changes.
Right.
And some kids also, I think this is a really important part, some kids will postpone most or all of their grief.
Right.
So often we'll hear parents wondering, like, are they grieving enough or not enough? And it's important to know that there are different styles of grieving. Some people are internal grievers and some people are external grievers.
Ryan from the Cove, we're out of time, so I want to thank you for some time. We'll hopefully see you again
so
soon.
much. Yeah.
You got it.
Thanks,
Ryan.
Thanks.
On behalf of Ryan, I'm Pete Mezzetti. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.